So I told you yesterday about my journey to Infusionsoft and rediscovering the importance of CRM. When you're creating nurture emails or writing stories for nurture emails, the first thing that I do now is I map out the story on a timeline. So what I do is I fold over a sheet of A4 paper and then I'll create a timeline like this. So then all the timeline does is it maps out the ebb and the flow of the story. So it maps out the high points and the low points. So if you think back to the story yesterday, or if you go back and watch the story again, the story starts off and there's a high point as I joined Prospectsoft, that was a good thing for me. Then I got bored and I got poor and I decided to leave work. And then I embarked on the self-employment journey, which is an up. Then I experienced all sorts of rejection and more poverty, which is another down. So you can have multiple downs in succession and multiple ups in succession. And the whole point of doing the timeline is it maps out where your story goes up and where your story goes down. And without doing this, what you'll find is that you won't be able to visually see how the story flows and whether you've got enough ups or downs, because it's the ups and the downs that make the story interesting. This is a technique that you can use anywhere, so you can use the timeline on a napkin, you can draw it out on a post-it note, so wherever you are, this is not a high-tech technique. And really the point is it allows you to see the contrast. And contrast actually works on multiple levels, so contrast works in your stories. But as an example, contrast also exists throughout the day. So in my office, I work in the morning at my desk. I'm very ashamed to say that this is my desk. I know it's very messy. But not much happens here in the morning. The postman will come. I'll generally work in silence. I just get on with work. And then 1 or 2 days a week, about 1:30 in the afternoon, I'll turn the computer off and I'll walk into town, which is Sheffield city centre, which is about a 1 hour walk from my house. And I walk through a few parks, and on the way I'll listen to audios, I'll listen to podcasts, and that immediately is a high degree of contrast from my morning work. When I get to town, I'll go to a coffee shop, or more specifically, I'll go to Tampa Coffee, which is by far and away the best coffee shop in Sheffield. And the coffee shop provides a great contrast to my office as well, because in the coffee shop there are lots of people, there's lots of noise, there's lots of hubbub. I can't work in a coffee shop for a very long time, but for an hour or two it makes a really nice contrast and it makes my day interesting. So it's contrast that makes your day interesting, and it's contrast that makes your stories interesting in your nurture emails. So that's the first thing that you can do today is you can draw out a timeline. So you can draw out your timeline either before you've written a story, or you can write out a timeline for a story that you've already created. Because what you'll see is that sometimes you'll see that you've got too many downs, or sometimes you'll see that you've got too many ups. So this is what you can do. So I would today go and find a story that you've already written and go and create a timeline and see how it looks visually, and just check that you've got enough contrast. The end of the timeline is the one idea, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow.